It was supposed to be a celebration, the kind of day where history is written, where children could look at their screens and see that justice had finally evolved to reflect them. But instead, America watched in shock as a female police officer attacked a black judge live on national television. And what followed shook the nation forever. If you stick with me through this story, you'll not only see how one moment of arrogance exposed an entire system, but you'll also witness how a single act of courage turned humiliation into lasting change. This isn't just a story about conflict. It's about power, dignity, and the price of truth. But before we go deeper, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss my latest uploads. Trust me, you'll want to stick around for more. Now let's get into it. The morning began with promise. Judge Valerie Monroe had just been elected as the first black female Chief Justice of her state. For months, anticipation built toward her swearing-in ceremony, a moment set to air live on television. America was ready to see history being made. Families tuned in, news stations broadcast it nationwide, and the courthouse overflowed with reporters eager to capture every second. Valerie stepped onto the stage, her robe flowing, her eyes steady. She had spent her whole life fighting for this moment, facing rejection, prejudice, and countless doors slammed in her face. But today, she stood ready to represent justice itself. And then, it happened. As Valerie approached the podium, a female officer, Lieutenant Harris, was assigned to stand nearby for security. But instead of standing guard, Harris shifted aggressively toward Valerie. At first, the crowd thought it was part of a protocol. But seconds later, gasps filled the air. In full view of the cameras, Harris grabbed Valerie by the arm, hard, yanking her back as if she had no right to be there. Her voice, caught on a live microphone, sliced through the stunned silence. "You don't belong up here." The words burned, not just in Valerie's chest, but across every living room in America watching. The crowd erupted. Some shouted in outrage, others froze, unable to believe what they were seeing. But Harris didn't stop. She shoved Valerie back with force, causing the chief judge, the very symbol of law and order, to stumble in front of millions. And just like that, history's spotlight turned into a spectacle of humiliation. The broadcast cut to chaos. Cameras zoomed in on Valerie's face, capturing her pain, her disbelief, and her resolve all at once. Viewers at home were left asking the same question. How could this happen? Now here's where the story gets even more powerful. Valerie, though shaken, did not retaliate. She didn't scream, didn't push back. Instead, she stood tall, straightened her robe, and looked Harris dead in the eye. Her words, calm but thunderous, echoed across the microphone. "You've just attacked the very seat of justice, and the entire nation has witnessed it." For a moment, the courtroom froze. Harris's smug expression faltered. The cameras caught it all, the realization sinking into her face as she recognized who Valerie was and what this meant for her own career. But the story didn't end there, because while internal affairs rushed to the scene, while fellow officers tried to escort Harris away, the damage had already been done. Social media exploded within minutes. Clips spread across TikTok, Twitter, and Facebook like wildfire. Headlines began pouring in. Female cop assaults black judge on live TV. Historic ceremony turns into national scandal. America asks who really holds power. By the time Valerie returned to the podium, the entire world was watching. But instead of breaking down, she turned the moment into something unforgettable. With the cameras rolling, she addressed the nation directly. No one is above the law, not the citizens, not the police, and certainly not the ones who think their badge gives them the right to strip others of dignity. Today was supposed to be about history, and it still is, because you all just saw the truth of what we face, and you will also see the justice that follows. Her words struck like lightning. While Valerie's composure inspired millions, whispers began circulating in the courthouse. Harris wasn't just any officer. She had deep connections inside the police union, people who weren't going to let her fall quietly. Was this attack just a personal act of arrogance or part of something bigger? The following days became a storm. Protests erupted in major cities. Some demanded Harris's termination and arrest. Others feared this incident would ignite an even bigger war between the courts and the police. Meanwhile, Valerie filed an official complaint, not just against Harris, but calling for a full investigation into systemic abuse inside the department. The stakes had never been higher. Leaked documents suggested Harris had a history of misconduct reports, all buried, all dismissed. And suddenly, Valerie's case wasn't just about her. It was about every victim who had been silenced before her. 1 week later, the courtroom was packed again, but this time for Harris's hearing. Millions tuned in, hungry for justice. Harris stood in uniform, her head bowed, but her eyes burning with defiance. Valerie, seated on the bench, looked directly at her. For once, the power dynamics were reversed. The officer who once shoved her on live TV now faced judgment from the very person she tried to humiliate. And in that moment, Valerie delivered the words America had been waiting for. "Lieutenant Harris, you attacked me in front of the world, but worse than that, you attacked the very principle of justice itself. Today, this court rules that you are guilty of misconduct, abuse of power, and assault under color of law. Your badge is stripped, your authority is gone, and your actions will forever be a reminder that justice bows to no one, not even those who think they can silence it." The gavel struck. The courtroom erupted. Some cried, some cheered, but everyone knew they had just witnessed a turning point. Justice had been served. Because as Harris was led away, whispers began to spread. Whispers of higher-ranking officials who had protected her for years. Valerie could feel it in her bones. This wasn't the end. This was just the beginning of a much bigger battle. And America was watching. Let me ask you this. Do you think the officer's punishment was enough? Or should the system have gone even deeper in holding others accountable? Let me know in the comment section. If you're really enjoying this story so far, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss my latest uploads. Now let's continue. As the bailiffs led Harris away in cuffs, her words from that fateful day echoed like poison in Valerie's ears. "You don't belong up here." They weren't just words of arrogance. They were the reflection of a system that had told people like Valerie for generations that they didn't belong. But today was different. Today, the irony was complete. The same system that once tried to silence her now bowed to her judgment. Reporters swarmed the courthouse steps as Valerie exited. Cameras flashed, microphones pushed toward her face. Questions rang out. "Judge Monroe, do you believe justice has been done? Do you fear retaliation from the police union? What message do you want America to take away from this trial?" Valerie raised her hand for silence, her robe still flowing as the wind whipped around her. Her voice was steady, each word chosen with precision. Today's ruling wasn't just about one officer's arrogance. It was about accountability. The law is not a weapon to be used against the people. It is a shield to protect them. Justice does not belong to the powerful. It belongs to all of us. The crowd erupted in applause. Across the country, people watching felt a sense of vindication. Social media lit up with praise, hashtags trending worldwide. Justice served, Valerie Monroe, no one above the law. But even as the celebration built, Harris's allies began to move. Behind the scenes, members of the police union and certain political figures whispered, plotting damage control. They wanted Valerie silenced. They wanted to spin the narrative, to paint her as overreaching, emotional, even dangerous. Yet what they underestimated was the power of truth, already unleashed into the public eye. The next week, evidence began surfacing. Whistleblowers from within the department leaked files showing Harris had a long history of complaints, all ignored, all buried. Reports of harassment, excessive force, and intimidation tactics all swept under the rug. And now, thanks to Valerie's stand, those buried voices were finally being heard. Families who had once felt powerless came forward. Mothers, fathers, and young men stood before cameras saying, "We tried to report her. No one listened. Until now." It became undeniable. Harris wasn't just one bad officer. She was the symptom of a larger disease, a system that protected power instead of the people. And the irony? The very system that once silenced those families was now forced to listen, because the world had seen the attack on Valerie, and the truth could no longer be ignored. Valerie was called to testify about the incident, but she went further. She laid bare the truth about systemic abuse, not with anger, but with unshakable dignity. She looked directly into the camera, speaking not just to the lawmakers in the room, but to every living room across America. "When I was shoved on live television, millions gasped in shock. But what about the millions of moments that happen off camera? The families broken, the lives destroyed, the dignity stolen in silence? That is the true injustice. Today, I demand that silence ends." The room went still. Lawmakers who once dismissed reform suddenly shifted uncomfortably in their seats, because Valerie's words weren't just testimony, they were truth, and truth has a way of dismantling arrogance. The legislative body voted to pass sweeping reforms, stricter accountability measures, independent oversight committees, and mandatory body cameras for all officers. The very institution that once turned a blind eye was forced to bend. And Harris? She was sentenced not just to disgrace, but to prison. The woman who once claimed on live television that Valerie didn't belong now sat in a cell, powerless, her arrogance reduced to silence. The officer who thought her badge made her untouchable was undone by the very law she tried to weaponize. When Valerie left the courthouse that final day, the applause was deafening. But she wasn't smiling in triumph. Her expression was steady, resolute, because she knew this wasn't about her victory. It was about a nation waking up to the truth that justice is not a privilege. It is a right. And in that moment, America changed forever. The battle was over, but the lesson was eternal. Valerie stood before the cameras one last time, her words destined to echo in history books. Dignity is not negotiable, respect is not optional, and justice does not bow to arrogance, not now, not ever. Let this day remind us, the law belongs to the people, all the people. The crowd roared. Across the nation, people stood taller, feeling that maybe, just maybe, the tide had begun to turn. Justice had been served. Powerful life lesson. When arrogance believes it can silence dignity, it always loses. True justice isn't about who holds the badge or the title. It's about standing firm even when the world tries to push you down. Because when you refuse to bow, you don't just defend yourself. You change the future. Quick question. Do you think Harris's prison sentence was enough, or should the entire department leadership have been held accountable too? Comment your answer below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more powerful stories like this one.